Spoken word or slam poetry
Slam poetry
has been used as a medium of self-expression for decades all over the world. The medium paved by African, Black, and Latinx people has provided a platform for young artists to speak on personal and social issues. Today, spoken word is powered by the youth through the classroom, competitions, and even as a hobby. Many of these young poets are students of color who are carrying the legacy of their ancestors and providing commentary on social justice. Through discussing the history and impact, I want to highlight the Afro-Latinx people who contributed to the history and also who use spoken word to empower others today. Before there were slam competitions, there were the roots that inspired it all. Spoken word dates back before the 1920s, where many tribes in Africa use oral poetry as a means of communication. Performance poetry in Africa dates to prehistoric times with the creation of hunting poetry. And while elegiac and panegyric court poetry were developed before the history of the empires of Nile, Niger, and Volta River valleys, one of the best-known griot poems was created for the founder of the Mali Empire. African culture performance poetry is a part of the theatrics, which is present in all aspects of pre-colonial African life, and whose theatrical ceremonies had many different functions, such as political, educative, spiritual, and entertainment.
On dit que les griots, un griot est la bouche, l'oreille, les yeux du peuple mandingue. Ce que le peuple a besoin de dire, c'est le griot qui dit ça. Ce que le peuple a besoin de voir, c'est le griot qui voit ça et puis il rencontre ça, il dit ça. Ce que le roi ne veut pas entendre, c'est le griot qui lui fait entendre ça. C'est ça que le peuple veut.
These traditions continued in America where, in the 1900s, the medium did not die, it grew. Through the Harlem Renaissance in the 1920s, many Black and African writers began to pair jazz and poetry together.
The Harlem Renaissance is a facet of a larger movement that we think of as the New Negro movement, where you have a new generation of Black people, by this point, 2 generations out of slavery, using the arts as a way to help people gain broader civil and political rights.
Many poets of the Harlem Renaissance were inspired to keep the roots and weave together African American culture through their poems. As a result, jazz poetry was heavily developed during this time. One of the most influential jazz poems of the time was called The Weary Blues by Langston Hughes.
The sun's a setting. This is what I'm gonna sing. Sun's a setting. This is what I'm gonna sing. I feel the blues a comin'. I wonder what the blues will bring.
Langston Hughes was a notable writer and helped develop the Afro-Latinx literature through the connection of the diaspora. Hughes traveled throughout South America, the Caribbean, Cuba, and Mexico. Through his travels, he met poets such as Luis Garloza, Rufino Tamayo, and brought his knowledge of jazz and poetry to Mexico. Latin America had a history of already using oral poetry through the descendants of African people, where now with Hughes' impact, it empowered the use of the spoken word. Another influential person was Arturo Schomburg. As an Afro-Latino, he had a great impact in the Harlem Renaissance. From Puerto Rico, later settling in New York, he left a mark on Black studies. Known as the man who built a library, he collected many pieces of literature and history written by Black writers.
During his first few years in the city, Schomburg worked closely with revolutionary Cuban and Puerto Rican independence groups. He surrounded himself with Afro-Boricuas and Afro-Cubans, and also became invested in Black American culture. Schomburg's life became about rewriting the history of Afro-descendants. He wrote about the experiences of Black folks at home and abroad, and dedicated himself to collecting, documenting, and archiving books, art, and other published work across the diaspora.
His legacy is left with his collection, but also through the Schomburg Symposium, where many different artists share their traditions, self-expressions, and performances, one of them being poetry slams. Next, in the 1950s, the Beat Generation was a literary movement started by a group of authors whose work explored and influenced American culture and politics in the post-war era. The Beat Generation rejected many constructs like economic materialism and the portrayal of society. Writers experimented with psychedelic drugs and their asexual identities, which inspired the central elements of beat culture, and it led to an influence on the use of spoken word.
And subsequent experiments of the Beat Generation writers. In the late 50s, beat poetry found its way to the UK. In the 1960s, spoken word embraced its role as a popular voice for counterculture, both in the US and the UK. And during the US Civil Rights Movement, poetry provided a powerful format for protest and artistic expression.
In the 1970s, the Nuyorican Poets Cafe in New York City brought forth the tradition of spoken word in the Latinx community. Co-founder Miguel Algarin said, "We must listen to one another, we must respect one another's habits, and we must share the truth and the integrity that the voice of the poet so generously provides." An excerpt from the Afro-Latinette reader states, "The Nuyorican poets who led the cafe in the 1970s, such as Victor Hernandez Cruz, Sandra Maria Esteves, and Felipe Luciano, incorporated a strong sense of Black cultural identity in their proclamation of New York City, based on the Afro-Latinette reality." And one of the most beautiful things about the Nuyorican Poets Cafe is that it's still thriving to this day.
Of New York City. This is really where the stories get told, the truth gets told. If you're looking for that positive energy, a place where you can authentically be yourself, come to the Nuyorican Poets Cafe.
Poets, writers, and collectors in America brought together a transatlantic Black and Latinx identity, which includes Afro-Latinx and Black Latinx people. Often when discussing the history of movements in art, there is the lack of recognition of Afro-Latinx people and their impact. However, they make up the Black and Latinx identity as well. The African, Black, and Latinx people are at the forefront of using spoken word as a medium of self-expression, in continuing to reclaim their identity and voice the topics that deeply impact them. After discussing the history of spoken word and highlighting how Afro-Latinx people have contributed to bringing to life the boom of the movement, there are many Afro-Latinx poets who share what it means to be Afro-Latinx today. I want to highlight a few slam poems from a few Afro-Latinx poets, and while it may be long to share a full poem, I think that it would be deeply impactful to share a poem from each of these poets. Elizabeth Acevedo is a Dominican-American Afro-Latina poet and writer. She has written many young adult novels like With the Fire on High and The Poet X. While still in college, Acevedo continued to participate in poetry slams and spoken word contests. In 2014, she became a National Poetry Slam champion. Here is her poem called Spear.
It almost curdles my womb dry. These stories. Girl parties in Steubenville, watch her drink, watch her pass out. Watch them grab wrists and ankles. She is now a rope they jump. 3 girls, no, they're women now. 10 years chains in a Cleveland basement. Did each one give thanks when he skipped her? When he visited that one, when he got her full of stillborn baby girl in Gretna, Louisiana, stuffed into a garbage bag. Show me her mother, how she clenches her fists. It seems we women must practice how to lose our daughters, because I know the boys who will help me carry grocery bags and then will whistle, will whisper, will crook fingers in my daughter's direction, and she may flip her hair. She may buck her hip. She may accept their invitation to chill behind paint chip staircases. The cheap vodka may burn her throat, but not how they will later when they become more thrust than thought, and you can't tell me that they don't know that her no is not a moan. When she wakes me, her bed puddled in piss, I will scrub these hands raw. I will tremble at what they could not prevent. So I have to hold every smile of my future daughter tipped up to the milk of this promise. She will not walk hunched, fingers playing with one another as if she can wring prayers from the sweat between her palms. My daughter will not be a girl forced to turn herself into a corner, taught that her body is a place to huddle, hide. I won't raise her to be nice, to give her laugh away, to smile polite as men plot and plan to turn her body into a weapon of war. And if they try, she will know how to wield herself. Don't tell me it's wrong to want to raise a child in this kind of fear. I know for every finger that we loosen, another knuckle grows back crooked. Another knuckle is looking to crack into my daughter's skin. And I can't trust this world to teach their sons how to treat my daughter. So I will raise her to be a sword, a shield, a spear, to turn class 10s into heated hatchet, to hold razors between her teeth, to cut unkind advances with the sharpest eyes, to hold all of this together with leather or lace, to be chiseled, prepared for rebellions against her flesh. My daughter will be carved from hard rock, sharpened shrapnel, a spear, her body ready to fling itself, an arrow, the hand of the first man who tries to cover her mouth.
Gabriel Ramirez is a queer Afro-Latinx poet, activist, and teaching artist. Gabriel has received fellowships from the Conservation Literary Arts Festival, Palm Beach Poetry Festival, The Watering Hole, and Canto Mundo. Gabriel has performed on Broadway at the New Amsterdam Theater. Here is an excerpt of his poem, On Realizing I Am Black.
On realizing I am black. 1. What the fuck? 2. Born American, raised Dominican, found black. Found God, found home. 3. You kidding me, right? I mean, don't you eat rice and beans every night? I mean, when was the last time you had some mac and cheese, some collard greens, and some neck bones? You know, speaking Spanish means you're Spanish. This means you're greedy. Would you like some neck bones? Along with the vertebrae of America's hung foundation fathers? Ain't that what you wanted? To call African ancestors yours too? Afro-Latino, Taino Indian? Are those drinks you Spanish people get during happy hour? Ha! Ain't no happy hour when the hands of your clock are shackled, dragged, baton beaten, bullet hole bleed out countless moments, drowning your existence in alcohol. Try to forget that you were even born to, and you are murdered every 28 hours. It's just another bump from a stranger on the sidewalk. 4. In Boston, I held the elevator door for every racist that I looked better than. I reached into my blazer, they grabbed their bags tighter, my hair grows as an afro. My grandfather would tell me, stop looking like a nigger. I tell him, I'm celebrating the way God made me. My grandfather smiled in the faces of my black friends like he had a lynch mob in his back pocket, his teeth. The 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment shredded into 36 different pieces of bigotry. 5. My grandfather died as the moon. I am not him. I am black and full of stars. I am not the absence of light. I am who allows light to exist. I am mother. I am Africa. Do not confuse me for hip hop and rap. Those are my fraternal twin grandchildren who always asking for money. You remember Biggie, Pac, Pun, you see stars died and have come home to me. I am not ugly. I am who allows you to be beautiful now. Isn't that the blackest thing you've ever heard God say?
Spoken word is definitely used by anyone at any age. However, students from marginalized groups are truly the people who are being lifted. Through class projects, clubs, competitions, and overall exposure in media, many students are finding their voice at a young age. Chicago-based high school teacher and poet Peter Kahn states that students need to know their stories. Their voices matter to adults and to each other. It is most imperative in times like these. Furthermore, using spoken word in the classroom helps students connect with one another and their teachers to build empathy. Since performance is deeply tied into spoken word, it gives the students the opportunity to build confidence and gain public speaking skills. Through the experience of performing their art through competitions, they are not only able to share their work, but they are able to be rewarded for it. There are many slam poetry competitions all over the world. One of the biggest ones I've personally remembered is called Louder Than a Bomb. A documentary with the same name follows 4 high school groups from Chicago competing against one another. It is such a powerful documentary, and to witness these young artists find their voice and passion, despite coming from marginalized communities, is truly inspirational. Here is one poem from the documentary that I would like to share.
2:56 p.m. Bullets bask and barrel before booming. Students zoom into its exit, run rampant like thoughts in my head. Any student not thought to be dead gets shot again. Students think not again as my text shoots shades of Virginia. Within the mutual mass behind mass, Blacksburg turns into the cow. Students scream aloud as rounds rip through the crowd. The scene is wild, but for once, I get to be center stage. Behind my blank look, I'm in a rage, a renegade tame, but in a cage I stand. Stand stiff as a statue staring at you. Shots and shotgun shells fly like pterodactyls. The scene is so thick, which fits cause I'm an outcast, but this is no player's ball. This is a scene of prayers, calls, and screams. Anybody from teens to professors to football players crawl, and I spray them all, lay them all down in a timely fashion. At that dashing of safety, I'm safely solid as a mannequin, brandishing 3 handguns and a shotgun. The water's going crazy. The water's going crazy. I'm just a daily reminder. Scrutinize my autopsy, you still won't find a spine to justify my acts. You run from my bullets, but you can't escape the fact that this goes back. This goes back to the 19th century in elementaries around the globe. 1891, St. Mary's Parochial School. Fools before me used shotguns to empty a class. Fast forward 36 years, 1927. Second to 6th graders were the targets. 45 were martyred. 58 more wounded at the hands of school board member Andrew Kehoe. Y'all upset at me though. This coward killed kids because his farm was being foreclosed. These were the same people chose to own slaves at the time. We are all slaves in the mind. I swear the world is going crazy. The world is insane. School shooters are more overrated than Lil Wayne, so tell his fans in Northern Illinois that I'm the shooter. Skin thick like Robin and matching in pigmentation, and tell his fans in Northern Illinois that I'm the shooter. Gun smoke and sudden death make the atmosphere putrid. Today's Valentine's Day, homie, I wanna be Cupid. Slugs replace arrows. Icebox replaces heart that I can't seem to find. No one seems to mind that students show more school spirit when someone's dead. Who was there in Parkminster before he bled husky red? Shots to the head seemingly make you more popular. That has to be where all the shooters kill themselves. Resembling suicide bombers from countries that we are brainwashed to think is a threat. We are fighting over oil. My blood boils at the realization that you get killed for nothing in college. Just as easily as you can in a war or in jail. But we still more concerned with weed sales and pushing the whip. I guess this is what happens when a country is run by a bush and a dick. The world is beyond crazy. Why are we overseas when the real war is in front of us? The real war is in the institution that is supposed to build a better tomorrow. The sorrows in the hearts of those who fall victim to those dim and bright futures. We fight foreigners when we are the ones who will shoot you. I'm sorry. This is a life in the dare of a resentful shooter. This goes out to the victims at Northern Illinois, Virginia Tech, Columbine High School, University of Texas, Bad School, Poe Elementary, Cologne, the list goes on. I'm sorry, because guns don't kill people. We kill ourselves, but the world is going crazy. Crazy like myself. Crazy like the fact that if Bush cared for my mental health, 5 innocent lives would have been spared. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So what is the impact? Honestly, after going through everything, I think it's confidence. It's confidence within the young artists that take on the spoken word movement. In the classroom, students are truly given the opportunity to learn about others and to break away from what Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie calls a single story of literature. Through discussing hard topics such as discrimination, oppression, privilege, and more institutions that impact marginalized groups, students are truly able to create empathy for others and to learn more about themselves and the people around them. Young people all over the world are sharing their stories, sharing their truth. People as young as 3.
teach me how to learn something in a week?
No.
Can you perform for us?
Yeah.
Are you ready?
You ready?
Okay, we're gonna let you take the stage.
All right, go on there. Oh, her dramatic walk to the microphone.
Hey, Black Child by County Color. Hey, Black Child, do you know who you are? Who you really are? Do you know you can be what you want to be if you try to be what you can be? Hey, Black Child, do you know where you're going? Where you're really going? Do you know you can learn what you want to learn if you try to learn what you can learn? Hey, Black Child, do you know you are strong? I mean really strong? Do you know you can do what you want to do if you try to do what you can do? Hey, Black Child, be what you can be, learn what you must learn, do what you can do, and tomorrow your nation will be what you want it to be.
I truly hope that more and more teachers and professors are going to incorporate spoken word and provide young people with the opportunity to find and share their voice. I want to emphasize that spoken word was not just founded by one group of people in America. It is a blend of many cultures and traditions from other countries coming together to create the boom of art all over the world. And I think that is super important for these teachers and professors to highlight if they incorporate it in their classrooms. Because, again, there is so much erasure, which is why the history of showing the origins of spoken word and some of the influential Afro-Latinx people who've contributed to that history was so important for me to highlight. Thank you so much for watching, and maybe I'll see a spoken word poem performed by you someday.